Here, at the most crossed border on Earth, two nations share a line the land itself has never recognized. And Mexico begins on the other side, vast and unhurried. Tijuana has reinvented itself more times than any city in Mexico. A place built on crossing, on reinvention, on the raw energy of millions who arrived and never left. Ensenada has welcomed fishermen, explorers, and travelers for 2 centuries. A port city shaped entirely by the generosity and violence of the Pacific. In this desert valley, volcanic soil, ocean wind, and relentless sun conspire to produce wines that have no equivalent anywhere else on Earth. So remote and so clear that astronomers built their telescopes here. Above these peaks, the Milky Way is not a suggestion, but a certainty. The Sea of Cortez shelters more marine species per square kilometer than almost any body of water on the planet. At the very tip of the Baja Peninsula, the Pacific and the Sea of Cortez meet in a collision of color and force beneath a stone arch that has witnessed it for millennia. One of the hottest and most biologically diverse deserts on Earth, the Sonoran is alive in ways that punish anyone who arrives without patience. Hermosillo moves at the pace of the north, direct, sun-hardened, and rooted in the ranching land and river valleys that built everything around it. The Seri people have fished these waters for thousands of years, guardians of a coastline where the Sonoran Desert walks directly into the sea without apology. Deeper and wider than the Grand Canyon, the Copper Canyon swallows the horizon in walls of copper red and green. The Raramuri have lived in its cliffs for centuries, running distances that still defy belief. At the canyon floor, the Urique River runs through a world that exists outside of time, warm, subtropical, and unreachable by any road the modern world has built. This was the capital of the revolution. Pancho Villa rode these streets. Father Hidalgo faced a firing squad in this plaza, and the North made its voice heard against everything that tried to silence it. The wind sculpts the Samalayuca dunes into new forms every single day. A frozen ocean that never stops moving, never repeats itself, never apologizes for its silence. Mexico's great mountain backbone runs through here. Pine forests that once sheltered bandits and revolutionaries, and today shelter jaguars, wolves, and a silence that goes on for hours. Mazatlan's grand Victorian mansions and its endless seafront malecón speak of a port city that has always known the world was watching and dressed accordingly. Once a quiet fishing village, Sayulita now belongs to those who travel slowly, drawn here by Pacific surf, jungle hills, and the particular warmth of a coast that doesn't rush anything. Banderas Bay is one of the largest natural bays in the Americas, a harbor so immense that the Sierra Madre had to step back from the coast to make room for it. Each blue agave plant takes up to 12 years to mature before it surrenders everything to the distillery. Tequila is patience, fire, and volcanic soil in a single glass. Birthplace of mariachi, tequila, and the Mexican rodeo, Guadalajara is the city where the western soul of Mexico was invented and has never stopped performing itself. In the workshops of Tlaquepaque, glassblowers and potters still work in the same spaces their grandparents built. Every piece carries the fingerprints of a tradition passed down without interruption. Mexico's largest lake shimmers between its mountains, like a mirror that has been here since before memory. D.H. Lawrence wrote that it made him feel the world was still young. One of the most active volcanoes in the Americas smolders on the border of Jalisco and Colima. From its summit, on a clear morning, you can see both the Pacific Ocean and the mountains of the interior in a single glance. Every winter, hundreds of millions of monarch butterflies complete a 4,000-kilometer migration and arrive in these mountain forests. The Purepecha people say they are the souls of the dead coming home for the season. The Purepecha resisted the Aztec Empire for centuries, building their heartland on these shores, and their butterfly net fishermen still cast at dusk on a lake that has forgotten how to change. Built entirely from pink volcanic stone, Morelia takes on an otherworldly warmth at sunset, a UNESCO colonial city where the Baroque and the natural world agreed, for once, on the same color. Built above a labyrinth of silver mine tunnels, Guanajuato erupts up its hillsides in an explosion of color. Once the wealthiest city in colonial North America, it spent its fortune on beauty and has never stopped. The pink stone church at its heart changes color with every hour of the day. San Miguel de Allende is a city where painters have been chasing the light with their brushes for 300 years. Mexico's independence conspiracy was born here in secret, and its great aqueduct, 74 stone arches, has been carrying water without interruption since 1738, as if time had agreed to leave it alone. A 16th century Augustinian monastery sits peacefully on the floor of a canyon that holds over 3,000 plant species, as if the landscape itself decided to offer it shelter. "22 million lives spread across a mountain valley at 2,240 meters above sea level. From above, Mexico City is almost incomprehensible, a human creation the size of a nation. 3 civilizations lie stacked beneath this plaza: Aztec, colonial, and modern, each one resting upon the broken stones of the civilization that came before it. In 1978, electrical workers struck carved stone and uncovered the lost heart of the Aztec universe. Buried for 450 years, hiding in plain sight beneath the colonial city. "30 years in construction, slowly sinking into the ancient lakebed beneath the city. The Palace of Fine Arts is Mexico's most beautiful act of architectural stubbornness. The Chinampas, floating gardens that fed the Aztec Empire, still grow corn and flowers here on the last surviving canals of the Great Lake that once covered the entire valley. The Smoking Mountain and the Sleeping Woman have watched over the Valley of Mexico since before memory. Their Nahuatl names tell a love story of impossible tragedy, written in fire and glacier. The City of the Gods housed 200,000 people in the ancient world, making it one of the largest cities on Earth at its peak. And we still do not know who built it or why they left. The third largest pyramid on Earth was built without metal tools, without the wheel, without draft animals. Only human will, precise mathematics, and a civilization that understood the sun. The Toltec stone warriors have stood on this pyramid summit for 1,000 years. Giants facing the morning sun, weapons raised, claimed as ancestors by every civilization that came after them. Puebla's cathedral took 300 years to complete, and its twin towers are the tallest in Mexico. A colonial ambition that also gave the world mole poblano and the proud memory of Cinco de Mayo. The Spanish built a chapel on what they thought was a hill. Beneath it lies the largest pyramid by volume on Earth. So vast, they never noticed it. Threaded inside by 18 kilometers of tunnels. Tiny Tlaxcala holds one of history's most consequential secrets. Without the Tlaxcalan alliance against the Aztecs in 1519, the story of the Americas might have ended very differently. The oldest and most important port in Mexico. Everything Spain extracted from this continent departed through these waters, and everything it imported arrived the same way. One of Mexico's last intact tropical rainforests, still breathing on the Gulf Coast. The Olmec civilization carved its colossal stone heads in this jungle 3,000 years ago, and the trees remember. The Zapotecs leveled a mountaintop to build their capital. From this summit, they governed, studied the stars, and built a civilization so resilient it outlasted the Aztec Empire entirely. Seven types of mole: wild agave mezcal, chocolate ground on stone, grasshoppers seasoned with lime. Oaxacan cuisine is not invention, it is memory, preserved in flavor across thousands of years. Mineral springs have been depositing limestone over this cliff for millennia, creating a waterfall that appears permanently frozen mid-fall. And the Zapotec irrigation channels beside it still carry water after 2,500 years. The Mexican pipeline is one of the most feared surf breaks on Earth. Waves born thousands of miles away in the open Pacific that arrive here with every joule of their original energy intact. In 1528, The Chiapanec warriors threw themselves from these cliffs rather than surrender to the Spanish. Canyon walls nearly a kilometer high, carrying that story in every layer of stone. Five centuries of colonial pressure did not silence the Tzotzil Maya. In the highlands of Chiapas, their language, their woven dress, and their cosmology remain absolutely and defiantly alive. King Pakal ruled this jungle city in the 7th century and was buried inside a pyramid. His hidden tomb, discovered in 1952, rewrote everything archaeologists thought they knew about the Maya. The Lacandon Maya retreated into this forest after the conquest and remained uncontacted by the outside world until the 20th century. The jungle protected them the way only a living thing can protect another. Dissolved minerals turn the water of Agua Azul into a supernatural turquoise blue. Dozens of cascades descending through the jungle in a landscape that seems invented rather than found. Carved from single basalt boulders and carried over 100 kilometers through swamp without the wheel, the Olmec heads are portraits of rulers who lived 3,000 years ago, still watching. The Spanish built these massive fortifications against pirate attacks in the 17th century. The pirates came again and again until the stone finally persuaded them to stop. The Puc stone mosaics of Uxmal are the peak of Maya architectural refinement. The Pyramid of the Magician took generations of extraordinary craftsmen to build into without mortar. Mérida is built from the limestone of the Maya pyramids the Spanish dismantled to construct it. A white city that carries the weight of what it replaced in every block of its foundation. El Castillo is a calendar written in stone. 365 steps, 52 panels, and on the equinox, a serpent of shadow descends the northern staircase, as if Kukulkan himself were returning to Earth. The Maya considered these sinkholes sacred portals to Xibalba, the underworld, and the offerings they cast into their depths thousands of years ago are still being recovered by divers today. The only Maya city built on a sea cliff, its temples were among the last the Maya raised before the conquest. And from their summit, you can watch sea turtles moving through the transparent Caribbean below. White sand, impossible turquoise, and the second largest coral reef system on Earth. The Mesoamerican reef runs beneath these Caribbean waters for over 1,000 kilometers. Cancun was not discovered, it was calculated. In 1970, a government computer selected this uninhabited Caribbean coast as the ideal coordinates for Mexico's great tourist machine. The Spanish named it the Island of Women for the Maya goddess figurines they found on arrival. This was a sanctuary sacred to Ixchel, goddess of the moon, and the light here still feels like an offering. Where the sky is born, 650,000 hectares of Caribbean wilderness where jaguars walk the beaches at night, and 1,000-year-old Maya canals still carry water through the mangroves. Limestone, depth, and the angle of the sun transform the same water from crystal to cobalt within meters. The Lake of Seven Colors is geology performing its most patient kind of beauty. At nearly 4,700 meters, two crater lakes sit at the bottom of this dormant volcano. The Aztecs climbed here to pray to the god of rain, and the lakes they prayed beside are still waiting. The Otomi people have tended the maguey on these hillsides since long before the Aztec Empire. Their pulque, fermented from the same plant as tequila, is a drink that predates written history in Mexico. A silver boomtown of 40,000 people abandoned when the mines ran dry. Today, a few hundred remain among the ruins, and the Huichol still make their sacred peyote pilgrimage through the desert below. The Tamil waterfall drops 105 meters through the Aztec jungle, a region where the violin and guitar play wapango through the night at celebrations that refuse to end before the sun comes back. For 250 years, Zacatecas produced 20% of the world's silver supply, and its Baroque cathedral, carved like lace from pink stone, spent every last coin of it on its own impossible facade. Since 1828, the largest fair in Latin America has opened here every April. Mexico's capacity for collective joy, organized, amplified, and offered to anyone willing to stay up late enough. "30,000 hectares of oak forest, held apart from the city by law and stubbornness. The place where Tapatíos come to remember what the land looked like before Guadalajara arrived. The Huijaritari homeland is deliberately unreachable, a mountain geography that has protected the most intact pre-Columbian spiritual tradition in the Americas for 5 unbroken centuries. Since 1934, the cliff divers of La Quebrada have timed their 35-meter plunge to the precise moment the incoming wave fills the channel. Courage made into daily ceremony, equal parts performance and genuine risk. Descendants of enslaved Africans who founded free communities on this Pacific coast, the Afro-Mexican people of the Costa Chica are one of Mexico's oldest and most persistently invisible stories. Tasco has been the silversmithing capital of Mexico since the 18th century. Its white houses tumble down impossible hillsides toward workshops where the craft has never once stopped. The Mixtec people who built this enormous fortress convent under Dominican supervision were the same culture that produced the finest gold jewelry in the ancient Americas. Their genius redirected, not erased. One of the last matriarchal economies in the Americas. In Juchitán, Zapotec women control the markets, the commerce, and wear their authority in spectacular floral headdresses that announce it to the world. 60 lakes within a few kilometers of each other, each a different color. Cobalt, jade, emerald, even red. A geological accident that looks exactly like a painter's palette left out in the rain. The Pyramid of the Niches carries exactly 365 recesses in its facade, one for each day of the solar year, the entire calendar of the Totonac civilization written in stone and shadow. Four Totonac flyers spin from a 30-meter pole, completing exactly 52 rotations in total. One full Mesoamerican calendar cycle completed in a single, slow, breathtaking descent from the sky. The flamingo's pink comes directly from the shrimp it filters from the water. In the Celestun lagoons, color is a measure of abundance, worn on every feather, renewed with every meal. Pico de Orizaba, the Star Mountain, is Mexico's highest peak and the third highest in North America. Its glaciers still visible from the Gulf Coast on a clear day, watching over everything below it. Frida Kahlo was born here, lived here, and died here. And the Blue House still carries her presence in its walls, its garden of pre-Columbian stone, and the pain it never stopped turning into color. In 1847, young military cadets wrapped themselves in the Mexican flag and threw themselves from these parapets rather than surrender to invading American forces. They are remembered forever as the Niños Héroes. Built by Emperor Maximilian as his own Champs-Élysées, Paseo de la Reforma became the artery of the Republic that outlasted him. The Angel of Independence presides over it all from a 45-meter column. "30 million years ago, cooling lava contracted into perfect hexagonal columns. Geology became geometry, and Alexander von Humboldt called this canyon one of the most extraordinary spectacles he had ever witnessed." In 1943, a farmer watched a crack open in his cornfield and a volcano grow in its place. Within a year, it had buried 2 villages, and the church towers still rise above the hardened lava, reaching for air. Every December, gray whales complete a 20,000-kilometer migration from the Arctic to give birth in these lagoons. And the fishermen who once hunted them now guard every arrival as if it were their own. Ancient and modern, desert and jungle, wound and healing, memory and becoming. No other land on Earth looks quite like this from above, and no other story is quite this layered, quite this alive, quite this overwhelmingly itself.